The mountains held their breath that December morning, as if the world itself knew what was coming. Snow had fallen through the night, blanketing the small town of Pine Ridge, Montana in a silence so complete it felt sacred, the kind of silence that comes before miracles or tragedies. High above the valley, where the frozen expanse of Mirror Lake lay hidden among ancient pines, the ice groaned softly, bearing secrets it wouldn't keep much longer. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more stories of courage, loyalty, and faith. The cabin stood alone at the edge of the wilderness, its wooden walls weathered silver by decades of mountain storms. Smoke curled lazily from the stone chimney, dissolving into the pewter sky. Inside, the air smelled of pine sap and coffee, the scent of solitude. Former Navy SEAL Marcus Thorne knelt before the fireplace, arranging split logs with the same methodical precision he once used to clear hostile buildings in places whose names he tried to forget. His hands, broad and scarred across the knuckles, moved with quiet efficiency. At 38, he was still built like a weapon, 6'3" of lean muscle, shoulders that filled doorways, arms marked with ink that told stories he never spoke aloud. But it was his eyes that carried the real weight. Gray-blue, like winter dawn over the ocean, they held a distance that no amount of peace could quite erase. The kind of eyes that had seen too much and couldn't unsee it. "Easy, Odin," he murmured without turning. Behind him, stretched across a worn leather couch, lay a massive Belgian Malinois. At 90 pounds of trained muscle and controlled aggression, Odin was more weapon than pet. His tan coat bore the faint white scars of shrapnel from Kandahar, and his dark eyes tracked every movement in the room with the alertness of a dog who'd spent 6 years sniffing out IEDs and hunting insurgents through Afghan mountains. The dog's ears swiveled toward the door before Marcus heard its footsteps crunching through fresh snow. Odin rose in one fluid motion, hackles raised, a low growl vibrating in his chest. Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward the Glock holstered at his hip before he caught himself. "You're not there anymore. Stand down." "At ease, boy," he said quietly, his voice carrying the same command authority that once led men through firefights. The knock came soft, almost apologetic. When Marcus opened the door, cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of snow and wood smoke. Standing on his porch was Gerald Moss, the local mail carrier, a wiry man, in his 60s with a face like weathered leather and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Morning, Marcus," Gerald said, his breath fogging in the frigid air. "Got a package for you. Didn't want to leave it in the cold." Marcus accepted the box, noting the return address. Department of Veterans Affairs. His jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Appreciate it, Gerald." The older man lingered, glancing past Marcus toward Odin, who stood rigid in the doorway, watching. "That's one hell of a dog you got there. Heard he was military." "Was," Marcus said, his tone making it clear the subject was closed. Gerald nodded, understanding the language of men who'd seen war. "Well, you take care now. Storm's coming in tonight. Radio says it could be a bad one." After he left, Marcus stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching snowflakes drift down through the pines. The box sat unopened on the kitchen table. He knew what was inside his Purple Heart and Bronze Star, finally processed through bureaucratic channels after 3 years. Medals for actions he'd rather forget, for brothers who'd never come home. He turned away from it. Odin pressed against his leg, a subtle gesture of comfort. The dog understood trauma in ways humans never could, had lived through his own version of it. Their bond had been forged in fire and blood, in midnight raids and the thunder of explosions. Now they shared this quieter burden, the weight of surviving when others hadn't. Marcus scratched behind Odin's ears, feeling the raised scar tissue beneath the fur. "Just you and me out here, brother. That's how we like it." The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. Outside, the wind picked up, howling through the pines like a distant scream. Marcus walked to the window, his coffee growing cold in his hand. The lake was visible from here, a vast white expanse surrounded by dark forest. Mirror Lake, the locals called it. In summer, it reflected the mountains so perfectly you couldn't tell where earth ended and sky began. In winter, it became something else entirely. 3 miles of ice and snow, beautiful and deadly. He'd come here to escape, to trade the sand and blood of Afghanistan for mountain silence, to stop waking at Cerro Tres Cerro with his hand on a weapon that wasn't there, ready to engage targets that existed only in memory. Some days, it even worked. Odin moved to the window beside him, pressing his nose against the glass. The dog's breath fogged the pain as he stared out at the frozen wilderness with the same vigilant intensity he'd once used to scan for threats. "Nothing out there but snow and pine trees," Marcus said softly. "No Taliban, no IADs, just peace and quiet." But even as he said it, something in his chest tightened, that old operator's instinct, the one that had kept him alive through 14 deployments. The feeling that said, "Something's coming." He shook it off, chalking it up to too many years of living on high alert. This was Montana, not Helmand Province. The only enemy here was the cold. Still, as he turned from the window, Marcus couldn't quite silence the voice in his head, the one that sounded like his old team leader, killed in action outside Mosul. "Complacency kills, Thorne. Stay sharp." Odin's ears suddenly pricked forward, his body going rigid. A low whine escaped his throat, not aggressive, but alert. Warning. Marcus's pulse quickened. "What is it, boy?" The dog stared out at the lake, every muscle tense, but there was nothing there. Just snow falling softly, endlessly, covering everything in white. 3 miles away, in a house that sagged under the weight of neglect, 8-year-old twins, Emma and Sophie Carter, pressed their faces against a frost-covered window, watching their father's truck disappear down the gravel road. The house was cold. It was always cold now. The heating oil had run out 2 weeks ago, and their father, Raymond Carter, a man whose once strong frame had been hollowed out by alcohol and rage, hadn't bothered to refill it. Empty bottles lined the kitchen counter like soldiers, catching what little light filtered through grimy windows. Emma, the older twin by 17 minutes, wrapped a threadbare blanket around her sister's shoulders. Though identical in appearance, both with honey blonde hair and wide hazel eyes that seemed too large for their thin faces, the girls had learned different roles. Emma was the protector, the planner. Sophie was the dreamer, the one who still believed their mother might come back, even though she'd been gone for 2 years. "Where's Daddy going?" Sophie whispered, her breath misting in the frigid air. "Probably to the bar," Emma said quietly, tucking the blanket tighter. She didn't add what she knew. That he'd be gone for hours, maybe all day. That he'd come back mean and stumbling, smelling like whiskey and broken promises. Their stomachs growled in unison. The last real meal had been yesterday morning instant oatmeal, watered down to make it stretch. The school lunch program had kept them fed during the week, but it was Saturday now. Weekend hunger was a familiar companion. Sophie's eyes brightened suddenly. "The ice fishing huts." Emma turned to her sister. "What? Remember? Daddy said people leave food in the ice fishing huts sometimes. Sandwiches and stuff? Maybe we could find some?" It was a terrible idea. Emma knew this immediately. The ice fishing huts were nearly 2 miles away, out on Mirror Lake. The temperature was dropping, and storm clouds gathered on the horizon like dark thoughts. But when she looked at her sister's hollow cheeks, at the hope flickering in those trusting eyes, she couldn't say no. "Okay," Emma whispered, "but we have to be quick. And we stay together, always." They dressed in layers-thin coats, over hoodies, over shirts that were too small. Hand-me-downs from donations at the church they no longer attended. Their boots had holes, stuffed with newspaper for insulation. Emma found 2 pairs of mittens, both mismatched, and a wool hat that they'd have to share. In the kitchen, Emma wrote a note in careful letters, "Gone for a walk, be back soon." She knew he probably wouldn't even notice they were gone, but writing the note made her feel like someone cared where they were. The cold hit them like a fist when they stepped outside. Sophie gasped, and Emma immediately regretted agreeing to this. But they were committed now. The trail to the lake wound, through forest thick with snow-laden pines. The girls walked in silence, their footsteps muffled, their breath coming in rapid clouds. Sophie held Emma's hand tightly, squeezing 3 times their secret signal. "I love you." Emma squeezed back 4 times. "I love you more." When they reached the lake's edge, the expanse of white seemed to stretch forever. A dozen small ice fishing huts dotted the frozen surface, colorful specks against the endless pale. Smoke rose from 2 of them, meaning fishermen were still inside. "We'll try the empty ones," Emma decided, already breaking the first rule of winter safety by stepping onto the ice. The lake groaned beneath their weight, a low, ominous sound that made Sophie freeze. "It's okay," Emma said, with more confidence than she felt. "The ice is thick. People drive trucks out here all winter." What? She didn't know what nobody in Pine Ridge knew yet, was that an underground hot spring had been slowly warming the eastern section of the lake all season. The ice there looked solid, covered in the same snow as everywhere else. But beneath the white veneer, it had weakened to barely 4 inches thick. Not enough to hold even a child's weight. The girls picked their way carefully across the ice, heading for a small red hut about 400 yards from shore. Their boots slipped occasionally, and once Sophie fell, scraping her palms on the rough ice. Emma helped her up, brushing snow from her sister's coat. "Almost there," she encouraged, though her own fingers were already numb inside the thin mittens. They reached the first hut and peered inside. Empty. No food, just a folding chair and an augured hole in the ice. The second hut yielded nothing either. "One more," Emma said, spotting a blue hut further out. "Then we go home, okay?" Sophie nodded, teeth chattering. They turned toward the blue hut, neither girl noticing how the ice beneath their feet had changed texture slightly, how the snow here sat differently. The hidden danger zone. Emma took 3 more steps. Then the world shattered. The crack was deafening like a rifle shot echoing across the lake. Emma's boot punched through ice that felt suddenly paper-thin. She screamed, grabbing for Sophie even as she fell, and her sister's instinct was to reach back. They went through together. The shock of the water stole Emma's breath instantly. It wasn't just cold, it was a violence, a crushing agony that seized every muscle. She tried to scream, but inhaled water instead, the taste of it metallic and wrong. Sophie's mouth opened in a silent cry, her eyes wide with terror. Somehow, through the panic and the cold that was already shutting down her body, Emma found her sister's hand. She held on, refusing to let go even as the current beneath. The ice tried to pull them in opposite directions. The hole they'd fallen through was already starting to freeze over at the edges. Above, through 3 feet of ice and snow, the world looked dim and distant. Emma kicked upward, breaking through with her free hand, gasping, pulling Sophie up beside her. "Help!" Emma screamed, but the sound died in the vast emptiness of the frozen lake. "Somebody help us!" No response. Just wind, and the terrible groaning of ice settling around the broken edges. Sophie coughed up water, shivering so violently, Emma could barely hold her. Emma, I can't feel my legs." "Stay with me," Emma commanded, her voice breaking. "Sophie, look at me, stay awake." But the cold was a predator, and they were prey. Already Emma's limbs felt impossibly heavy. Her thoughts were slowing, becoming confused. How long had they been in the water? Minutes? Hours? She tried to pull them out, to get leverage on the ice edge, but her hand slipped. The ice broke away under her weight, plunging them back under. When they surfaced again, Emma's grip on her sister had weakened. Terror gave her one last burst of adrenaline. "Squeeze my hand," she gasped. 3 times. "Tell me you love me." Sophie's tiny frozen fingers squeezed once, twice. The third squeeze never came. "No," Emma screamed. "No, no, no. Sophie." But her sister's eyes were closing, her lips blue, her body going slack in the deadly water. Emma's scream echoed across the frozen lake, raw and primal, the sound of a child watching her other half slip away. And in the forest, 3 miles distant, a dog's ears pricked forward at a frequency only he could hear. Marcus was chopping firewood when Odin started acting strange. The dog had been lying peacefully in a patch of sunlight on the porch, but suddenly he was on his feet, body rigid, staring north toward the lake. A low whine built in his throat, not the warning growl he used for immediate threats, but something else, something urgent. Marcus set down the axe, wiping sweat from his brow despite the cold. What's got into you? If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Odin barked once, sharp and insistent. Then again. His training took over. This was his alert bark, the one he'd used in Afghanistan when he detected explosives or when something was critically wrong. The bark that said, "Threat, danger, move now." But there was nothing to see. Just endless white forest and the distant shimmer of the frozen lake. "Easy, boy," Marcus said, but his own instincts were firing now. He'd learned long ago to trust Odin's senses. The dog had saved his life in Kandahar by detecting an IED that intelligence had missed, had alerted to an ambush in the Hindu Kush Mountains 30 seconds before the first RPG screamed overhead. If Odin said something was wrong, something was wrong. The Malinois moved to the edge of the porch, barking continuously now, his eyes locked on something Marcus couldn't see. Then, without warning, he leaped from the porch and bolted toward the tree line. "Odin, heel!" The dog didn't stop. He disappeared into the forest at full sprint, his powerful body cutting through the snow like it wasn't there. Marcus swore under his breath. In all their years together, Odin had never disobeyed a direct command. Never. He grabbed his jacket, checked that his Glock was secure in its holster, and followed at a run. His breath came in rapid clouds as he crashed through the underbrush, following the dog's tracks. His bad knee, courtesy of a Taliban bullet, protested, but adrenaline overrode the pain. "Odin?" he shouted again. "Where the hell are you going?" A bark answered him from ahead, urgent and commanding. Marcus pushed harder, his SEAL training taking over. His breathing regulated. His movements became more efficient. He'd spent years learning to move fast through hostile terrain. This was no different. Except it was. Because he had no idea what he was running toward. The forest opened suddenly onto the eastern shore of Mirror Lake. Marcus skidded to a stop, scanning the vast white expanse. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just ice and snow and a few distant fishing huts. Then Odin barked again, and Marcus followed the sound. The dog was at the water's edge, pawing frantically at something. When Marcus got closer, he saw it. Fresh tracks in the snow. Small tracks, children's tracks, leading straight out onto the ice. His blood went cold. "Jesus," he breathed. Already running before his conscious mind caught up. He followed the tracks, his eyes sweeping the lake, training, kicking, and threat assessment. Escape routes, available resources. The ice felt solid beneath his boots, but he knew better than to trust appearances. Winter ice was treacherous, especially late in the season with temperature fluctuations. Odin raced ahead, moving with purpose, nose to the ground. He was tracking, following scent the way he'd tracked insurgents through Afghan villages. 300 yards out, Marcus saw it. A dark patch on the ice. Wrong color, wrong texture. Open water. "No," he whispered, breaking into a sprint. "No, no, no." As he got closer, the scene resolved into nightmare clarity. A hole in the ice, maybe 3 feet across. And in it, 2 small figures struggling weakly in the black water. Children. Twins, from the look of them. Both with blonde hair plastered to their faces. Both with lips the color of death. Marcus's SEAL training took over completely. Emotions shut down. Mission parameters locked in. 2 victims in water. Severe hypothermia, minutes from death. Extract and stabilize. He was 50 feet away when Odin reached them first. The dog didn't hesitate. He threw himself down flat on his belly and began low-crawling across the ice toward the hole, distributing his weight to avoid breaking through. It was a technique Marcus had taught him for crossing unstable terrain, but he'd never seen Odin use it without a command. The dog knew. Somehow, impossibly, he knew exactly what to do. Odin, hold. Marcus ordered, afraid the ice wouldn't hold even the dog's weight this close to the break. But Odin ignored him again. He reached the edge of the hole and grabbed the nearest child, the one who was still conscious, still trying to hold her sister above water by the back of her coat. His powerful jaws closed on the fabric, and he began to pull backward, dragging her towards solid ice. Marcus dropped to his belly and crawled forward, spreading his weight. The ice groaned ominously beneath him, cracks spider-webbing outward. "I've got you," he called to the girls. "Hold on." The conscious twin, Emma, though he didn't know her name yet, looked at him with eyes that had already accepted death. She was shaking so violently she could barely focus. But when she saw Marcus, when she saw his face and the uniform patches still visible on his jacket, something flickered in those dying eyes. "Hope. My sister," she gasped through chattering teeth. "Please, Sophie." The other girl had gone completely limp, face down in the water. Marcus could see she'd stopped breathing. Time slowed. His training created a tactical picture. Girl, 1 conscious, being extracted by Odin. Girl 2, non-responsive, sinking. Ice, unstable. Rescue window, seconds. He made his decision. Marcus lunged forward, grabbed the unconscious twin by her coat, and pulled. The ice beneath him cracked like a gunshot. For a moment he thought it would give way entirely, sending all of them into the killing cold, but it held. Barely. He dragged Sophie onto more solid ice, already assessing. No breathing, lips blue-black, pupils fixed and dilated. Severe hypothermia with probable cardiac arrest. Odin had pulled Emma to safety 20 feet away. The girl collapsed on the ice, convulsing. Marcus went into combat medic mode. He'd treated gunshot wounds, blast injuries, traumatic amputations in the field. This was different, but the principle was the same. Stabilize, warm, transport. He ripped open Sophie's coat, put his ear to her chest. No heartbeat. "Damn it," he muttered, and began CPR. His hands moved with practiced precision, 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. Compress, compress, compress. The ice beneath them groaned again, but he couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. "Come on, little one," he growled between compressions. "Don't you quit on me." "That's an order." 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Odin barked urgently. Marcus looked up to see the dog dragging Emma by her coat, pulling her toward shore. The animal's instincts were flawless. Get them off the unstable ice, get them to safety. "Good boy," Marcus gasped, then returned to Sophie. "Come on, breathe." Compress, compress, compress. He'd lost count of the cycles when Sophie suddenly convulsed. Water exploded from her mouth as she coughed violently. Her eyes flew open, unseeing, terrified. "That's it." Marcus lifted her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. "I've got you. You're safe." Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was still deep in hypothermia shock. Marcus stood carefully, testing the ice with each step as he carried Sophie toward shore. Ahead, he could see Odin still pulling Emma, the girl barely conscious but alive. The walk back felt endless. Every crack in the ice sounded like a death sentence. Marcus's arms burned from holding the child, but he'd carried 100-pound packs through mountains. One small girl was nothing. Finally, blessedly, they reached solid ground. Marcus laid Sophie gently in the snow, then ran to help Emma. The girl's eyes tracked him weakly as he approached. "Your sister's alive," he told her. "You saved her. You held on long enough." Emma's face crumpled. Tears froze on her cheeks. "Sophie, she's breathing, but we need to get you both warm. Now." He looked at Odin, who stood between the girls like a sentinel. "Guard," he commanded. The dog immediately positioned himself against the twins, using his body heat to warm them. It was another technique Marcus had never explicitly taught, yet Odin executed it perfectly. Marcus pulled out his cell phone. No signal, they were too deep in the wilderness. He swore, calculating distances. His cabin was 3 miles. The town was 5. Both were too far for girls in this condition. Then he remembered the ice fishing huts. Some of them had propane heaters. "Change of plans," he said, already scooping up Sophie again. "Odin, stay with Emma." The dog barked once in acknowledgement. Marcus sprinted toward the nearest hut, the blue one, about 100 yards away. He kicked open the door to find exactly what he needed: a small propane heater, some blankets, and a first aid kit. He ran back, gathered Emma into his other arm. She weighed almost nothing, just bones and wet clothing, and carried both girls to the hut. Odin followed, his body never more than inches from the children. Inside, Marcus worked with controlled urgency. He stripped both girls of their wet clothing, wrapped them in every blanket he could find, and positioned them next to the heater. Odin curled around them both, creating a living heat source. Sophie had started breathing on her own, but it was shallow, labored. Emma was more alert, but shaking so violently her teeth rattled. "What are your names?" Marcus asked, as he rubbed Emma's hands between his, trying to restore circulation. "Emma?" she stammered. "That's Sophie, my sister. I'm Marcus. This is Odin. You're going to be okay. How did you find us?" Marcus glanced at the dog. He did. "I just followed." Emma's gaze shifted to Odin, who was lying between her and Sophie, his amber eyes watching both girls with an intensity that bordered on religious. "He saved us?" "Yes, he did." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Nobody ever comes for us." The simple statement hit Marcus harder than any Taliban bullet ever had. He knew that emptiness in her voice, that bone-deep certainty that she didn't matter to anyone. He'd felt it himself. Once. After his parents died, after his team was killed, after he came home to find the country had moved on without him, that his sacrifices were just statistics in a war people wanted to forget. "Well, I'm here now," he said quietly. "And I'm not leaving until you're both safe." Sophie stirred, her eyes flickering open. She looked around in confusion, saw Marcus, then her sister. "Emma?" "I'm here, Soph. We're okay." The twins reached for each other instinctively, their fingers interlocking. Marcus watched them squeeze hands once, twice, 3 times. Some kind of signal between them. Emma squeezed back 4 times. Odin whined softly and licked Sophie's face. The girl managed a weak smile. "He's big," she whispered. "He's a Belgian Malinois, military dog. And between you and me, he's kind of a hero." Outside the hut, the wind had picked up. Through the small window, Marcus could see snow beginning to fall, the storm Gerald had warned him about. They couldn't stay here. The girls needed real medical attention, hot fluids, warming protocols that he couldn't provide in a fishing shack. He checked his phone again. Still no signal. "All right," as said, making a decision. "We're moving to my cabin. It's 3 miles, but I've got heat, food, and a landline. Can either of you walk?" Both girls shook their heads. Marcus nodded. "Okay, I'll carry you. Both of you." He fashioned a makeshift sling from blankets, creating a way to carry one girl on his back and one against his chest. It would be exhausting, but he'd carried wounded teammates through worse terrain under enemy fire. "Odin, scout ahead." A commanded, and the dog immediately moved to the door, ears pricked, scanning for threats. As Marcus prepared to lift the girls, Emma grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength. "Why?" she asked, her hazel eyes searching his face. "Why are you helping us?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, "Because someone helped me once, when I needed it. I'm just paying it forward." It wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was, that saving these girls felt like redemption for all the people he couldn't save, for his team in that ambush, for the Afghan children caught in crossfire, for every loss that haunted his dreams. But Emma seemed to understand anyway. She nodded once, then let him bundle her onto his back. The journey to the cabin was brutal. Marcus's legs burned, his knee screamed, and more than once he stumbled. But each time he started to fall, Odin was there, pressing against his leg, steadying him. They moved through falling snow that was already beginning to erase their tracks. The forest closed in around them, dark and primordial. Once, Marcus thought he heard the distant sound of an engine, maybe the twins' father, finally looking for them, but it faded before he could be sure. Sophie had lost consciousness again, her breath hot against his neck. Emma stayed awake, her arms wrapped around him, occasionally whispering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." When the cabin finally appeared through the trees, Marcus had never been so grateful to see anything in his life. He kicked open the door, carried the girls inside, and laid them gently on the couch before his fireplace. Odin immediately resumed his position beside them, pressing his warm body against their small frames. Marcus threw more logs on the fire until it roared, filling the cabin with blessed heat. He grabbed every blanket he owned, wrapped the girls completely, then ran to the kitchen to heat water. His hands shook as he worked not from cold, but from the adrenaline crash. Now that the immediate crisis was over, the weight of what had almost happened hit him fully. He'd been 30 seconds from finding 2 dead children. Odin had known. Somehow, impossibly, the dog had sensed their distress from 3 miles away and led Marcus straight to them. While water boiled, Marcus went to the landline and dialed Novecientos once. Novecientos once. "What's your emergency?" "This is Marcus Thorne, up on Ridge Road. I've got 2 young girls, twins, maybe 8 years old. Pulled them from the lake. Severe hypothermia. One went into cardiac arrest, but I got her back. They need immediate medical transport." The dispatcher's voice sharpened. "Copy that. Can you describe them?" "Blonde. Identical twins. Both wearing thin coats. They said their names are Emma and Sophie." A pause. "Carter? Emma and Sophie Carter? They didn't give me a last name." "Hold on." Muffled voices in the background. Then, "Sir, those girls have been reported missing for 4 hours. Their father filed a report when he couldn't find them. We have units searching the entire North Valley." Marcus looked at the twins, now sleeping fitfully by his fire. 4 hours. That meant their father hadn't even noticed they were gone until afternoon. The pieces came together: neglect, desperation. 2 children driven to risk the ice, looking for food. His jaw tightened. "How long until you can get here?" "Storm's getting bad. Helicopter can't fly. We'll send an ambulance with a plow. But you're looking at 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Make it faster," Marcus said, and hung up. He brought the hot water to the couch, added honey, and a pinch of Saltfield Expedient rehydration solution, and helped Emma sit up enough to sip. "Where's your father?" he asked gently. Emma's eyes clouded. "He left. He's probably at the Rusty Nail. That's where he goes." "The bar?" She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "And your mother?" "Gone. 2 years ago." Marcus absorbed this, his expression carefully neutral. "Does your father hurt you?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost didn't hear it. "Not with his hands. Just with his leaving." Sophie stirred, her eyes opening slowly. When she saw Marcus, she smiled, a small, fragile thing that somehow broke his heart more than all her fear. "You're the soldier man," she whispered, "with the hero dog." Marcus smiled despite himself. "Former soldier. And yeah, that's Odin. He's the real hero here. Can I pet him?" "Of course." Sophie reached out with trembling fingers. Odin leaned into her touch, his tail thumping gently against the floor. The girl's smile grew wider. "He's so warm," she breathed. "That's because he's got a good heart," Marcus said. "Like you too. You took care of each other out there. That took courage." Emma looked at him with ancient eyes. "We're always together. That's our rule. Always. Good rule. Over the next hour, color slowly returned to the girls' faces. They drank more of the hot water, ate some crackers Marcus pressed on them, and gradually stopped shivering. Odin never left their side, seeming to understand his role as guardian and heater. Marcus sat in the chair across from them, his Glock now resting openly on the side table. He'd made a decision while waiting for the ambulance, though he'd never say it out loud. If anyone came through that door intending to take these girls back to a home where they were neglected, where they were forgotten, where they were driven to risk death, just to find food, well, they'd have to go through a Navy SEAL first. The sound of sirens finally cut through the storm. Odin's ears pricked, but he didn't move from his post. Marcus went to the window and saw flashing lights through the tree's ambulance, followed by 2 sheriff's cruisers. "Looks like the cavalry's here," he said to the girls. But Emma's face had gone pale. Is our dad with them?" "I don't know. Would that be a problem?" She didn't answer, but her hand found Sophie's and squeezed 3 times. Marcus understood. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling in front of them. "Whatever happens, you 2 were brave today. You survived. Remember that." The knock on the door was firm, authoritative. When Marcus opened it, he found himself face to face with Sheriff Tom Briggs, a man in his 50s with iron-gray hair, and the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades keeping peace in a hard country. Behind him stood 2 paramedics with a gurney. "Mr. Thorne?" Briggs extended a hand. "Sheriff Briggs. Sounds like you've had quite a day. The girls are stable. Warming up, but they need to be checked at the hospital." "Agreed." Briggs's eyes moved past Marcus to the couch, where Emma and Sophie sat wrapped in blankets. His expression softened. "Hey there, girls, your daddy's been worried sick." Emma's hand tightened on Sophie's. The paramedics moved in with practiced efficiency, checking vitals, asking questions. Both girls were declared stable enough to transport, though they'd need observation for hypothermia complications. As they were loading the twins onto the gurney, Sophie looked back at Marcus and Odin. "Will we see you again?" she asked, her voice small. Marcus glanced at the sheriff, who gave the slightest shake of his head, best to make a clean break. But Marcus had never been good at following advice that felt wrong. "I'll check on you," he promised. "Both of you." Emma's eyes held his for a long moment. Then she nodded, as if accepting a vow. The ambulance pulled away, its lights painting the snow red and blue. Sheriff Briggs lingered on the porch, studying Marcus with sharp eyes. "That was good work today," Briggs said. "How'd you find them?" Marcus looked at Odin, who sat alert at his side. "My dog. He heard something. Led me right to them." Briggs's eyebrows rose. "From 3 miles away? In a storm? He's military. Bomb detection, search and rescue. His senses are exceptional, I'll say." The sheriff paused, then added carefully. "The girl's father, Raymond Carter. Well, let's say he's known to us. Drinks too much. Can't hold a job. Those girls have been on our radar for a while. Why haven't you done anything?" "Because neglect is hard to prove in court without evidence. Raymond feeds them barely and keeps a roof over their heads. He's never hit them, never touched them inappropriately. In the eyes of the law, that's enough." Marcus's hands curled into fists. "Those girls nearly died today looking for food. They fell through the ice because they were starving." "I know," Briggs said quietly, "and I promise you, this incident will be documented. Social services will be involved." "But the system moves slowly, and those girls don't have slow," Marcus interrupted, his voice hard. "They need help now." The sheriff met his gaze steadily. "Then, I guess it's a good thing they've got someone looking out for them. Someone with special operations training and a dog that performs miracles." The 2 men stared at each other, an understanding passing between them. "I'll be in touch, Mr. Thorne," Briggs said, turning toward his cruiser. "I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of each other." After everyone left, Marcus stood on his porch as night fell. The storm had passed, leaving the world crystalline and still. Stars emerged, cold and distant. Odin pressed against his leg, and Marcus reached down to scratch the dog's ears. "You knew," he said quietly. "You knew they were out there, drowning. How?" The dog looked up at him with amber eyes that held depths Marcus couldn't fathom. "Well, whatever it was." Marcus knelt, bringing himself eye level with his partner. "You saved 2 lives today, brother. That's 2 more souls in this world, because you wouldn't give up. Because you listened when no one else could hear." Odin's tail thumped once against the snow. Marcus stood, his gaze turning toward the distant lights of Pine Ridge. Somewhere in that town, 2 little girls were being examined, warmed, cared for. And somewhere else, their father was probably sitting in a bar, wondering how his day had gone so wrong. Marcus made a decision then, though he didn't fully understand it yet. Those girls had looked at him with such desperate hope, such faith that someone would finally choose them. He knew that look, had worn it himself once, and he couldn't walk away from it any more than he could have left a wounded teammate on the battlefield. "Come on, Odin," he said, turning back inside. "I think our quiet retirement just got complicated." The Pine Ridge Medical Center smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. Emma and Sophie sat side by side on a hospital bed, wrapped in heated blankets, while Dr. Sarah Chen, a young woman with kind eyes and gentle hands, checked their vitals for the 3rd time. "Temperature's coming up nicely, Doctor," Chen said, making notes on her tablet. "You girls are very lucky. Another 10 minutes in that water." She didn't finish the sentence. Emma's hand found Sophie's under the blanket, squeezing 3 times. 4 squeezes back. The door opened, and their father stumbled in. Raymond Carter at 40 looked 60, face florid from alcohol, belly pushing against a stained flannel shirt, boots tracking mud across the clean hospital floor. He reeked of whiskey and cigarette smoke. His eyes, once the same warm hazel as his daughter's, were bloodshot and unfocused. "There you are," he bellowed, his voice too loud in the small room. "Jesus Christ, you scared me half to death. Running off like that, what the hell were you thinking?" Both girls flinched. Dr. Chen stepped between them and their father, her expression cooling. "Mr. Carter, your daughters have been through a severe trauma. They need to learn not to wander off." Raymond interrupted, pointing an accusing finger at the twins. "I turned my back for 1 minute, and they're nearly drowning. What am I supposed to do? Watch them every second." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "We left a note." "What?" "We left you a note," she repeated, louder now, though her hands trembled. "In the kitchen. We said we'd be back soon." Raymond's face darkened. "Don't you backtalk me, girl. You're 8 years old. You don't go nowhere without asking." "You weren't there to ask," Emma said, and immediately regretted it. Her father took a step forward, his fist clenching, and Dr. Chen moved immediately into his path. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. You're agitated, and the girls need rest. Don't tell me how to handle my own kids." "Dad, please," Sophie started. "You shut your mouth. Both of you." The door opened again, and Sheriff Briggs entered, his presence filling the room with quiet authority. "Raymond, I think you need to step outside with me." Raymond turned his glare on the sheriff. "This is none of your business, Tom. Your daughters nearly died today. That makes it my business." Briggs's tone was mild, but his hand rested casually on his belt near the taser. "Now I can have this conversation with you in the hallway like adults, or I can have it in the back of my cruiser. Your choice." For a moment, Raymond looked like he might swing at the sheriff. Then, slowly, the fight drained out of him. He sagged, suddenly seeming older, smaller. "Fine," he muttered, "but I'm their father. I got rights." "Yes, you do," Briggs agreed. "And we're going to talk about those rights in the hallway." After they left, Dr. Chen turned back to the girls. "Are you two okay?" Emma nodded numbly, but Sophie had started crying silent tears that streamed down her cheeks. "He's always like that," Sophie whispered. "Always angry, always leaving." Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. She made another note on her tablet, this one marked with a red flag. Girls, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Does your father hit you? Both girls shook their heads. Does he touch you in ways that make you uncomfortable? No, Emma said. He forgets about us, sometimes for whole days. And today, what were you doing out on the ice? The girls exchanged a glance. Finally, Emma said, We were hungry. We thought maybe the fishing huts would have food. Dr. Chen's expression cracked, just for a moment. Oh, sweethearts. She set down her tablet and sat on the edge of the bed. I'm going to make sure you both get something to eat. Real food, okay? And I'm going to talk to some people who can help. Would that be all right? Emma's voice was flat, lifeless. No one can help. We tried before. They said Dad was doing his best. Well, maybe they didn't have all the information they needed. But now, they will. In the hallway, Sheriff Briggs had Raymond pressed against the wall. Not physically, but with the weight of authority and years of experience dealing with men like this. You left them alone, Briggs said quietly. All day, at 8 years old, in the middle of winter. I was at work. You don't have a job, Raymond. Your boss at the mill let you go 3 months ago. I checked. Raymond's face reddened. I was looking for work. At the bar. Networking. You were drinking yourself blind while your daughters starved. Briggs stepped closer. I've been patient with you, Raymond. Lot of men lose their way when their wife leaves, but your girls nearly died today. That crosses a line. It was an accident. How was I supposed to know they'd go out on the ice? You weren't supposed to know because you weren't there. That's the problem. Raymond sagged against the wall. For a moment, something that might have been shame flickered across his face. I don't know how to do this without her, Tom. I don't know how to be both parents. Then, you get help. There are resources, programs, people who want to help families like yours. People who want to take my girls away, you mean? Briggs sighed. Raymond, I've known you since you were 15. You're not a bad man. You're a broken man. But your girls can't pay the price for your brokenness anymore. So what happens now? You arrest me? No. But social services will be conducting a home visit, maybe several. And if things don't improve, if those girls don't have food, heat, and supervision, then, yeah, we'll have to look at other options. Raymond's hands curled into fists, but the fight had gone out of him. They're all I got left of her, he whispered. They look just like her. Sometimes it hurts to even look at them. I know, but they need a father, not a ghost. Inside the room, Emma and Sophie had finished the sandwiches and juice Dr. Chen brought them. They ate in silence, the way children do when food has been scarce, carefully, savoring every bite, making it last. Sophie was coloring on a piece of paper the nurse had given her. Emma watched her sister, seeing how the crayons shook in her hands, how her eyes kept darting to the door, expecting their father to burst back in. Em? Sophie whispered. Is it bad that I wish Dad wasn't here? Emma pulled her sister close. No, it's not bad. I keep thinking about the soldier man and his dog. They were so warm and safe. And the dog. Her voice broke. The dog saved us. He pulled you out. I know. Dad wouldn't have. If the soldier man hadn't been there, Dad wouldn't have even known we were gone. The truth of that statement sat heavy between them. Emma thought about Marcus Thorne and his intense gray-blue eyes, the way he'd carried them both like they weighed nothing, the way he'd knelt beside them and promised they were safe, the way his hands had been gentle despite being scared and strong. She thought about Odin, the massive dog with amber eyes who'd dragged her from freezing water, who'd lain beside them radiating warmth and protection. And she thought about their cold house, the empty refrigerator, the father who only seemed to remember they existed when someone forced him to. Sophie, Emma said slowly, if we could live somewhere else, somewhere safe, would you want to? Sophie looked up at her, eyes wide. Like where? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe with someone who wants us. No one wants us, Em. That's why Mom left. The words hit like a physical blow, but Emma forced herself to stay calm. Mom left Dad, not us. That's different. Is it? Before Emma could answer, Dr. Chen returned with a woman Emma didn't recognize. She was in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Girls, this is Miss Patricia Hendricks," Dr. Chen said. "She's with Child Protective Services." Both girls went rigid. Miss Hendricks smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hello, Emma." "Sophie. I'm just here to ask a few questions. Make sure you're both doing okay. Nothing to be scared of." But Emma had learned to recognize predators, even ones with kind voices. This woman had power to split them up, to send them to different foster homes, to destroy the only constant in their lives, each other. "We're fine," Emma said quickly. "It was just an accident. The ice looked solid. We didn't know." "I understand. But I need to know why you were out there in the first place." "We were exploring." "Emma." Miss Hendricks's voice hardened. "Slightly. Dr. Chen told me you said you were looking for food." Sophie squeezed Emma's hand in warning. "Don't tell. They'll split us up." But Emma was tired of lying. Tired of protecting the father who never protected them. "We were hungry," she said, her voice steady. "There wasn't anything at home to eat. Dad hadn't been grocery shopping in a week. We thought maybe the fishermen left food in the huts." "Ms. Hendricks made notes on her phone. "And where was your father?" "At the bar. He goes there most days." "Does he drink when he comes home?" "Always." More notes. "Has he ever hit you?" "No." "Touched you inappropriately?" "No." "Left you alone overnight?" Emma hesitated. That was the question that could change everything. Sophie's hand squeezed desperately. "Please don't, please." But Emma looked at her sister, really looked, and saw the hollow cheeks, the shadows under her eyes, the way her ribs showed through her hospital gown. Saw what their life had become. "Yes," Emma whispered. "Sometimes for 2 or 3 days. He leaves money for food, but it's never enough, and sometimes he forgets." Ms. Hendricks' expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "Thank you for being honest, Emma. That takes courage." Sheriff Briggs appeared in the doorway. "Patricia, can I see you outside?" They stepped into the hallway, leaving the girls alone with Dr. Chen. Sophie turned on her sister, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you tell? Now they're going to take us away." "Maybe that would be better." "No, we stay together. That's the rule." Sophie was sobbing now, her small body shaking. "You promised, Em. You promised we'd always be together." Emma pulled her sister into a fierce hug. "We will be. I promise. No matter where they send us, we'll find each other. Always." Outside, Ms. Hendricks and Sheriff Briggs spoke in low, urgent tones. "Those girls can't go back to that house," Hendricks said bluntly. "Not tonight. Maybe not ever." "Agreed, but we need evidence. A judge won't terminate parental rights based on one incident." "One incident?" "Tom, they nearly froze to death because they were starving." "I know, but Raymond hasn't hit them, hasn't abused them sexually. In the eyes of the court, this is neglect, which is harder to prosecute." Hendricks's jaw set. "So what do we do?" "Emergency foster placement, tonight. Then we document everything: home visit, school records, medical records, build a case that even a sympathetic judge can't ignore." "And the girls?" "They're terrified of being separated." Briggs thought for a moment. "I might know someone who could take them both, at least temporarily." "Who?" "The man who saved them, Marcus Thorne." Hendricks raised an eyebrow. "The Navy SEAL living up on Ridge Road?" "Tom, he's single, male, no foster certification, and he's a war hero with no criminal record who just saved 2 lives. Plus, those girls trust him. I saw it in their eyes. The system doesn't work like that. We have protocols." "Then work faster, because right now, those girls have 2 options. Go back to a father who neglects them, or get split up into separate foster homes. I'm offering a third option." Hendricks was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'll make some calls. But I can't promise anything." Back in the room, Emma and Sophie had exhausted themselves crying. They lay together on the hospital bed, holding hands, staring at the ceiling. "Do you think he's real?" Sophie whispered. "The soldier man. Or did we imagine him? He's real. So is Odin. I hope they're together right now. Soldier man and Odin. I hope they're warm." Emma squeezed her sister's hand 3 times. 4 squeezes back. "Me too, Soph. Me too." Outside, night had fallen completely. In the parking lot, Raymond Carter sat in his rusted pickup, a half-empty bottle between his knees, staring at nothing. He should go back inside. Should comfort his daughters. Should be the father they deserved. Instead, he took another drink. And 3 miles away, in a cabin surrounded by silent pines, Marcus Thorne stood at his window, unable to shake the image of 2 small girls holding hands, squeezing messages only they understood. Odin pressed against his leg, whining softly. "I know, boy," Marcus said quietly. "I feel it too." Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the day playing on loop in his mind. Emma's terrified eyes, Sophie's blue lips, the sound of ice cracking, the desperate race back to the cabin with both girls growing colder in his arms. He'd faced enemy fire without flinching, had made split-second decisions that meant life or death for his team. But the weight of those 2 small lives had shaken him in a way combat never had. Maybe because they were innocent. Maybe because they reminded him of himself abandoned, forgotten, left to survive on their own. At 2:37 de la mañana, his landline rang. Marcus was out of bed and across the room before the second ring, Odin at his heels, instantly alert. "Thorne. Mr. Thorne, this is Sheriff Briggs. I apologize for the hour, but we have a situation." Marcus's pulse quickened. "The girls? They're physically fine, medically cleared. But," a heavy sigh, "social services can't send them back to their father. Not tonight. And our emergency foster placements are full, one with a family that can only take 1 child." Marcus's hand tightened on the receiver. "You're not splitting them up. That's why I'm calling. I know this is highly irregular, and I'd understand if you said no, but those girls need a place to stay, temporarily, just until we can arrange something more permanent. You want me to take them? You saved their lives. They trust you. And frankly, Mr. Thorne, you're the only person in this whole situation who seems to give a damn about keeping them together." Marcus looked at Odin, whose amber eyes gleamed in the darkness. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. "I'm not certified as a foster parent. I'm not even sure I'm qualified. You're former Navy SEAL with an honorable discharge and no criminal record. You're more than qualified. I can fast-track emergency placement papers. You just need to agree to a home visit and some basic training." Marcus thought about his cabin. It was small, isolated. He had a guest room that was basically storage. He hadn't cooked a real meal for anyone but himself in years. His nightmares sometimes woke him screaming. He thought about Emma's voice. "Nobody ever comes for us." "When?" he asked. Relief flooded Briggs's voice. "I can bring them in an hour. Just for tonight, maybe a few days, until however long they need," Marcus interrupted. "If those girls need a safe place, they've got one here. Thank you. I'll handle the paperwork." After hanging up, Marcus looked around his cabin with new eyes. The guest room was full of boxes gear from his military days, old photographs he couldn't bear to look at. The Purple Heart he'd never opened. He started clearing immediately. By the time headlights cut through the trees an hour later, the room was clean, the bed made with fresh sheets, and a space heater humming warmth into every corner. Marcus opened the door to find Sheriff Briggs holding a small duffel bag, with 2 small figures behind him. Emma and Sophie looked impossibly tiny in the darkness, wrapped in donated coats that were too big, clutching paper bags that held what few possessions they'd been allowed to take from their house. "Hey," Marcus said softly, kneeling to their level. "Remember me?" Sophie's face broke into a smile. "You're the soldier man." "Just Marcus. Come on inside. It's cold out." The girls entered hesitantly, their eyes wide as they took in the cabin. Odin waited patiently by the fire, and when Sophie saw him, she gasped with joy. "Odin!" The dog's tail began to wag, and when Sophie ran to him, he gently licked her face, making her giggle. Emma was more reserved, standing near the door as if ready to run. Marcus recognized the stance, defensive, wary, ready for disappointment. "Your room's through there," he said, pointing. "Bathrooms next door. There's towels, soap, everything you need. Are you hungry?" Both girls nodded. "Okay. How do scrambled eggs and toast sound?" "Real food?" Sophie whispered in disbelief. The question broke Marcus's heart. "Real food," he confirmed. "As much as you can eat." Sheriff Briggs spoke quietly. "I'll leave the emergency placement papers with you. Patricia will be by tomorrow morning for the home visit. If you need anything, we'll be fine," Marcus said, and realized he meant it. After Briggs left, Marcus cooked while the girls sat at his small kitchen table, watching him with identical expressions of confused hope. Odin lay between them, a warm presence that seemed to anchor them. "How do you like your eggs?" Marcus asked. "Anyway," Emma said quickly. "We're not picky. Well, I make them with cheese. That? Okay?" Both girls nodded vigorously. As Marcus cooked, he asked casual questions, trying to learn about these two small humans who'd suddenly become his responsibility. "What grade are you in?" "Third," Emma answered. "We're in the same class, Mrs. Patterson." "What's your favorite subject?" "Art," Sophie said immediately. "I like to draw." "Emma?" "Reading. Books are. They're like going somewhere else." Marcus plated the eggs, added toast and jam, poured glasses of milk. The girls fell on the food with a desperation that made his chest tight. They were starving. Actually, genuinely starving. "Slow down," he said gently. "It's not going anywhere. And there's more if you want it." Sophie looked up, egg on her chin. "Really? Really?" After they'd eaten seconds for both, thirds for Emma, Marcus showed them to their room. It was simple, but clean. 2 beds, a window facing the mountains, the space heater making everything warm and safe. "Bathrooms there," he pointed. "I put out toothbrushes. Bahamas, they might be too big, but they're clean. If you need anything, I'm right down the hall." Emma looked at the beds. We can both stay? Together?" "Of course. This is your room now. Both of you." Sophie clutched her paper bag tighter. "What if our dad comes?" Marcus knelt, meeting both girls' eyes. "Your dad's not coming here." Sheriff Briggs made that clear. "And even if he tried," his voice hardened, "he'd have to go through me first." "Understood?" Emma studied him for a long moment, as if testing the truth of his words. Finally she nodded. "Okay. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure things out. But tonight, you're safe. I promise." As he turned to leave, Sophie's voice stopped him. "Mr. Marcus?" "Just Marcus is fine. Marcus, thank you for finding us, for saving Sophie." "You saved each other," Marcus said. "I just helped a little." After he closed their door, he stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. He heard whispered conversation, then the sound of 2 small bodies climbing into the same bed, despite having 2 available. "Always together," Emma had said. "That's our rule." Marcus understood. In the teams, you never left a man behind. Your brother's life was worth more than your own. These girls had that same bond, forged in a different kind of battlefield, but no less real. He returned to his room, but sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the house had him alert, ready to respond if the girls needed anything. Around 4 a.m., he heard a cry. He was moving before he was fully awake, years of military training taking over. He found both girls in the hallway, Sophie crying, Emma trying to comfort her. "Nightmare?" Marcus asked gently. Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I dreamed about the water. about drowning. Marcus thought about his own nightmares. Firefights, explosions, friends dying in his arms. He'd learned to live with them, but these girls were 8 years old. "Come on," he said, and led them to the living room. He built up the fire until it roared, then settled on the couch. Odin immediately jumped up, positioning himself between the girls. Without being asked, Emma and Sophie curled up against the dog's warm body. "When I have bad dreams," Marcus said quietly, "I do something my old team leader taught me. I think about 3 things I'm grateful for. Real specific things." "Like what?" Emma asked. "Like, I'm grateful it's warm in here. I'm grateful Odin found you when you needed help. And I'm grateful you're both here, safe." Sophie sniffled. "What are you grateful for, Em?" Emma thought for a moment. "I'm grateful we're together. I'm grateful Odin's so warm. And I'm grateful Marcus is a good cook." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "Your turn, Soph," Emma prompted. "I'm grateful Emma held me in the water. I'm grateful the ice didn't break all the way. And I'm grateful for Odin's ears, they're really soft." The dog's tail thumped in agreement. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. Gradually, both girls' breathing deepened, evened out. They were falling asleep. Marcus carefully extracted himself and grabbed blankets, covering both girls where they lay against Odin. The dog looked at him, as if to say, "I've got this," and settled deeper into the couch, his body curving protectively around the twins. Marcus stood watching them for a long time. 2 broken children and 1 veteran war dog, all healing each other without words. His phone buzzed. A text from Sheriff Briggs. "How are they?" Marcus typed back. "Sleeping. Safe. We're good." A pause, then. "Thank you for this. Those girls needed someone like you." Marcus didn't respond. He wasn't sure what to say. He hadn't planned on this. Hadn't planned on suddenly being responsible for 2 lives that depended on him for everything. But as he looked at Emma and Sophie, curled up with Odin by the fire, something in his chest loosened. A knot he'd been carrying since Afghanistan, since losing his team, since coming home to an empty cabin and emptier days. Maybe they needed him, but maybe he needed them too. Needed to be someone's hero again, someone's protector, someone who mattered. He settled into his chair, Glock within reach out of habit, and kept watch through the night. Because that's what you did for your people. You stood guard. You kept them safe. You let them sleep, knowing that someone was watching over them. As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the snow gold and pink, Marcus Thorne, former Navy SEAL, wounded warrior, and now emergency foster father, made a silent vow. These girls would never go hungry again. Never be cold. Never be forgotten. He'd failed to protect his team in Afghanistan. Failed to save them when it mattered most. But he wouldn't fail Emma and Sophie. Whatever it took, he'd keep them safe. Odin's eyes opened, meeting Marcus's across the room. The dog seemed to understand, seemed to approve. "We've got a new mission, brother," Marcus thought. "And, this time, we bring everyone home." Morning came with a knock that was too hard, too aggressive. Marcus was instantly awake, hand moving toward his weapon, before he remembered where he was. The girls were still asleep on the couch, Odin's head resting protectively across both of them. Another knock, more insistent. Marcus checked his watch. 7:42 de la mañana. Too early for the social worker's visit. Sheriff Briggs had said Patricia Hendricks wouldn't arrive until 10. He moved to the window and felt his jaw tighten. Standing on his porch was Raymond Carter. The man looked worse than he had at the hospital, unshaven, eyes wild, clutching a bottle in a paper bag. Behind him stood 2 other men Marcus didn't recognize. One thin and nervous with patchy stubble, the other broad and mean-looking with prison tattoos crawling up his neck. Marcus opened the door, just wide enough to fill the frame with his body, keeping himself between Carter and the interior. "Mr. Carter, where are my girls?" Raymond's words were slurred, his breath sour with alcohol. "I know they're here. That bastard sheriff told me. Your daughters are safe. That's all you need to know." "Like hell." Raymond tried to push past, but Marcus didn't budge. It was like pushing against a mountain. "They're my kids. You can't just take them." "I didn't take anyone. Social services placed them in emergency foster care." "There's a court order." "Bullshit. This is kidnapping." Raymond turned to his companions. "You're my witnesses. This man is holding my children against their will." The thin one, Marcus, mentally tagged him. Tweaker shifted nervously. The big one, Prison Tats, cracked his knuckles and smiled. Marcus recognized the play immediately. Carter was drunk, desperate, and had brought backup he thought would intimidate a regular civilian. He had no idea who he was dealing with. "Here's how this is going to go," Marcus said, his voice dropping into that command tone that had led men into firefights. "You're going to turn around, get off my property, and call your lawyer. The courts will schedule a hearing. That's the legal way." "Fuck legal." Raymond lunged forward, fist swinging. Marcus moved without thinking, muscle memory from 1,000 hours of hand-to-hand training. He caught Raymond's wrist, twisted, and had the man spun around with his arm locked behind his back before the punch even came close to landing. "Don't make me hurt you," Marcus said quietly. Prison Tats moved forward, and Odin was suddenly there, appearing in the doorway like a demon made flesh. The dog's lips pulled back from teeth, designed to tear flesh from bone, a growl building in his chest that sounded like death itself. Both men froze. "That's a military war dog," Marcus said conversationally, still holding Raymond's arm. "Trained to neutralize enemy combatants. Right now, he's deciding if you're a threat to me or to the children he's guarding. I'd strongly suggest you don't give him a reason to choose yes." Tweaker was already backing toward the truck. "Now," Marcus continued, "I'm going to let you go. You're going to leave. If you come back without a court order, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you try to contact those girls without permission, I'll have you arrested for violating a restraining order. Are we clear?" He released Raymond, who stumbled, nearly falling. "This isn't over," Raymond spat. "Those are my daughters." "Then maybe you should have fed them," Marcus said coldly. "Maybe you should have noticed when they were so hungry they risked their lives looking for scraps. Maybe you should have been a father." Something in Raymond's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like what he probably was. Underneath the anger and alcohol, a broken man who'd lost his way and taken his children down with him. "I tried," he whispered. "After Sarah left, I tried. But I don't know how to do this alone. Then, get help. Real help. But until you do, those girls are safer here." Raymond looked at the door as if he could see through it to where his daughters slept. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them yourself. When you're sober, when you're better, when you can actually be what they need." After they left, Marcus stood on the porch for a long moment, adrenaline slowly draining from his system. His hands were shaking not from fear, but from controlled rage. How could a father abandon his children like that? How could he let them starve while he drowned himself in bottles? Behind him, a small voice said, "Was that our dad?" Marcus turned to find Emma in the doorway, Sophie behind her, both looking smaller than ever. "Yes, but he's gone now." "Is he mad at us?" Sophie asked. "No, sweetheart, he's mad at himself, as he should be." Emma's expression was unreadable. "Did he ask about us? Like, if we're okay?" Marcus realized she wasn't asking if her father cared. She was testing whether Marcus would lie to make her feel better. "He asked where you were," Marcus said honestly. "But he was drunk, and he brought men who looked like trouble. I wasn't about to let him near you like that." Emma nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something she already knew. "Thank you. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible, true stories of courage and loyalty." The rest of the morning passed quietly. Marcus made pancakes, real ones, with syrup and butter. The girls ate like they were afraid the food might disappear. Patricia Hendricks arrived at 10 sharp, a woman who missed nothing. She inspected the cabin thoroughly, asked Marcus detailed questions about his background, his plans, his understanding that this was temporary. But her expression softened when she saw the girls with Odin. The way the dog let them drape themselves over him while they read picture books Marcus had downloaded on his tablet. "They seem comfortable here," she observed. "We're getting along. Mr. Thorne, I need to be clear. This placement is emergency only. A week at most. Once we find a proper foster family—" "What if you already have?" Marcus interrupted. Patricia raised an eyebrow. "You're considering becoming a certified foster parent?" "I'm considering keeping these girls safe. If that means jumping through bureaucratic hoops, then point me at the hoops." She studied him for a long moment. "Why?" "Because nobody else seems to be stepping up, and because I know what it's like to feel abandoned. I won't do that to them." Patricia made notes on her tablet. "The process takes time. Background checks, home studies, training courses, months. Then we have months. Those girls aren't going anywhere." After Patricia left, Emma approached Marcus while Sophie played with Odin. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "We're used to moving around, used to new places. Is that what you want? To leave?" "No." The word came quick, almost desperate. Then softer. "But people always send us away eventually, when we're too much trouble. So, I just wanted to say, I understand. If you change your mind." Marcus knelt to her level. "Emma, look at me." She did, those hazel eyes holding worlds of hurt. "I was a Navy SEAL. You know what that means?" "You're a soldier?" "Was. But the important part is, when SEALs go on a mission, we follow one rule above everything else. We don't leave anyone behind. Ever. No matter how hard it gets, no matter what the cost. We bring our people home. But we're not your people." "Yes," Marcus said firmly, "you are." Emma stared at him, and slowly, so slowly, something in her expression softened. "Promise?" "I promise." She threw her arms around his neck, and Marcus felt her small body shaking with silent sobs. He held her, this fierce little girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast, and made a silent vow to give her back some childhood. That afternoon, Marcus took the girls into town for supplies. They needed clothes that actually fit, school supplies, toothbrushes that weren't borrowed. Pine Ridge was the kind of small mountain town where everybody knew everybody else's business. Walking through the general store, Marcus felt eyes tracking them, the mysterious former SEAL, who kept to himself, now suddenly appearing with 2 children. He ignored the stares. Let them gossip. At the clothing section, he told the girls to pick out whatever they needed. They were hesitant at first, conditioned to not ask for things. But with encouragement, Sophie selected a warm coat with purple trim, and Emma chose boots that actually fit. They were at the checkout when a woman's voice cut across the store. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Plus, Hero." Marcus turned to find a woman in her 50s, expensively dressed, with perfectly styled blonde hair and cold blue eyes. Beside her stood a man in an expensive suit, silver hair, practiced smile, the look of someone who sold things for a living. Major Diane Voss and her husband, Councilman Brett Voss. Marcus knew them by reputation only, and none of it good. "Mrs. Major," Marcus said neutrally, "I heard you pulled the Carter girls from the lake yesterday. Very heroic." Her tone made it sound like an accusation rather than praise. "And now I hear you're playing foster parent. Temporary placement. How generous." Of course, some might wonder about a single man, living alone, suddenly taking in 2 young girls. She let the implication hang in the air. Marcus's jaw tightened. "If you have something to say, ma'am, say it clearly." Brett Voss stepped forward, his smile plastic. Now. My wife simply means that the Carter situation is complex. Raymond's a troubled man, but he's trying. Maybe outside interference isn't helpful." "Outside interference." Emma's voice was small but sharp. "He left us alone for 3 days. We almost died because we were looking for food." Diane's expression didn't change. "Children often dramatize. I'm not dramatizing." Emma's hands were fisting. "We were starving. Nobody cared until Marcus." "Emma," Marcus said gently, putting a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay." But Emma wasn't done. She turned to the growing crowd of onlookers. "My dad drinks. A lot. He forgets to buy food. He forgets we exist. And nobody did anything. Not the mayor, not the school, not anybody. But this man," she pointed at Marcus, "this man saved us. Him and his dog. So maybe everyone should leave him alone." Silence fell over the store. Diane Voss's face had gone red. "Young lady, she's right." The new voice came from the back of the store. An elderly woman in worn but clean clothes stepped forward. Grace Mitchell, retired teacher and town matriarch. "We all knew those Carter girls were struggling. We saw it, and we did nothing. So maybe instead of questioning the man who stepped up, we should be thanking him." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Marcus picked up his shopping bags. "We're done here. Girls, let's go." As they left, he heard Grace's voice behind them. "Shame on you, Diane. Those children needed help, and you were more worried about appearances than their safety." In the truck, Emma was shaking. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at the mayor." "Yes, you should have," Marcus said firmly. "You stood up for yourself, for your sister. That takes courage. But now everyone's talking about us. Let them talk. You know the truth. I know the truth. That's all that matters." Sophie, who'd been quiet through the whole encounter, suddenly spoke. "Marcus, why did the mayor's husband call you interference?" Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Because some people get uncomfortable when others point out problems they've been ignoring. It's easier to blame the messenger than fix the issue." "That's stupid." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "Yeah, kiddo. It really is." That night, after the girls were asleep, Marcus got a call from Sheriff Briggs. "The Voss situation," Briggs said, without preamble. "I heard about it," she implied. "I was a predator. I know. And for what it's worth, she's got no leg to stand on. Your background check is cleaner than mine. But Marcus, the Vosses have influence in this town. If they decide to make trouble, let them try. I'm serious. Brett Voss has connections to the State Child Services Department. He could throw up roadblocks in your fostering certification." Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. "They'd really separate those girls just to prove a point?" "I don't know, but I'd be careful. The Vosses don't like being embarrassed." After hanging up, Marcus sat in the dark, Odin's head resting on his knee. Outside, snow had started falling again, soft and silent. Through the partially open door, he could hear Emma and Sophie talking in their room. "Do you think he'll keep us?" Sophie whispered. "I don't know. Maybe. I hope so. I like it here. I like Odin." And Marcus doesn't yell. "Yeah." A pause then. "Em? Do you think Mom ever thinks about us?" Longer silence. Then, "I don't know, Soph. But I think maybe we're better off without her." "Is that bad?" "No. Because we have each other. And now we have Marcus and Odin. Maybe. For a little while at least." Marcus closed his eyes, something fierce and protective rising in his chest. Not just a little while, he thought. Not if I have anything to say about it. Because he was beginning to understand something he hadn't before. These girls didn't just need a roof and food. They needed what he needed. A purpose. A family. A reason to believe the world could be good again. He'd spent years believing he was broken beyond repair, that his best days were behind him, that the only thing he was good for was existing in isolation. But maybe, just maybe, he'd been wrong. Maybe his entire life, all the training and pain and loss, had been preparing him for this. To be here, now, for two little girls who needed someone to stand between them, and a world that had forgotten they mattered. Odin shifted, looking up at him with those knowing amber eyes. "Yeah, boy," Marcus whispered. "We've got work to do." A week later, Raymond Carter returned, but not alone, and not sober. He brought Brett Voss and a falsified custody order, claiming Marcus had kidnapped his daughters. They arrived at dawn, pounding on the door with threats. Marcus stepped onto the porch, Odin at his side, both ready. "That's a fake document, and you know it." Brett's smile was cold. "Prove it. By the time you do, those girls will be back with their father, where they belong." Emma and Sophie appeared in the doorway, and Raymond lunged forward. Odin moved like lightning. The dog didn't attack. He positioned himself between the girls and the men, his body a wall of muscle and loyalty. His growl was a promise. "You'll have to go through me. Stand down," Marcus commanded, but not to Odin too. "Raymond, you want your girls? Get sober. Get help. Prove you're a father. But until then, you're not taking them." Sheriff Briggs's cruiser appeared, lights flashing. He'd been monitoring the situation, waiting for Brett to overplay his hand. "That's a forged document, Brett," Briggs announced. "And attempting to circumvent a court order is a felony. You're both under arrest." As they were cuffed, Raymond looked at his daughters. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." Emma squeezed Sophie's hand 3 times. 4 squeezes back. Then, to their father, "Get better, Dad. Then maybe we can talk." 6 months passed. Raymond entered rehab, real rehab, court-mandated and monitored. The Vosses faced corruption charges, and Marcus's foster certification was approved. The hearing was simple. The judge looked at Marcus, at the girls who clung to him and Odin, at the school reports showing improved grades and health, and made her decision. Permanent placement. Granted. That night, by the fireplace, Emma asked, "Does this mean we're staying forever?" "Forever," Marcus confirmed. Sophie hugged Odin, who'd never left their side since that first day. "Did you know," she asked the dog, "that day on the ice, did you know you were saving us?" Odin's tail thumped once, a sound that meant yes, that meant always, that meant this is why I'm here. Marcus pulled both girls close. "You saved each other that day. And maybe you saved me too." Outside, snow fell softly over Pine Ridge. Inside, a family that had been broken in different ways was whole. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes still exist. Don't forget to subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Was it Odin's loyalty, Marcus's protection, or the moment justice was served? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story.